Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Indium Software's webinar on how to accelerate the monetization of your data assets with data modernization. A quick introduction about Indium Software. We are a digital engineering company that builds modern solutions across applications, data, and gaming. We are present in 4 countries: USA, India, UK, and Singapore. Indium has helped global enterprises build real-time analytics solutions that are capable of processing exabytes of data. We offer a wealth of experience across industries such as banking, healthcare, and manufacturing. A quick sneak peek into today's webinar. The webinar will be about leveraging data to its fullest potential, as this has become a strategic imperative. Let me introduce our esteemed speakers who will guide us through the best practices, challenges, and opportunities in data monetization and modernization. Introducing Srinath Venkatesh Nadkarni. Srinath is our Senior Vice President of the Data and Analytics practice. With a remarkable track record in driving data-driven strategies, Srinath has been at the forefront of leveraging data for business growth. And joining him from our Data and Analytics team is Srinivasan Rajashekaran, our Senior Data Architect. His expertise lies in crafting robust data architectures that form the foundation for successful digital transformation initiatives. There's an exclusive 15-minute Q&A at the end of the session where you can post your questions and our experts will address them. So without further ado, Srinath and Srinivasan, the virtual stage is yours.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the webinar. Today we will talk through aspects of accelerating data monetization, unleashing the value of data and benefits of being part of the data economy, how firms can navigate the changing landscape of data monetization opportunities, what are the essential data monetization framework and strategies that one should be looking at, the role of an efficient data monetization platform and for the success of the data monetization initiatives. And we will conclude a Q&A. Feel free to drop your questions on the topic and we'll answer your questions at the end of the session. Once again, thanks for joining and let's get rolling. Let me just quickly take you guys through the quick insights from a data and analytics industry trends around the data management, right? By 2025, people will create more than 181 zettabytes of data. 82% of organizations plans to increase their investment in data modernization, which is really 41% up compared to 2022. By 2025, large companies will share data for collaboration. Data assets will be treated as products and interconnected devices will collect real-time information. 61% of the companies think that the fast-growing volume of data is limiting their ability to harness their data fully. A fifth of digital leaders feel they are effectively using data insights to generate more revenue, which is really less compared to the number of digital leaders who should be actually using the data insights to generate the more revenue. But we'll look into it, possibilities why the numbers are less there. 22% of the chief executives officers believe using data effectively to develop new products and services is an important source of their growth in the next 5 years. So what this all means, we all know the growth of data is unprecedented. Data infrastructure not enough to handle the explosion of data. Business and data leaders are looking to harness this huge volume of data and generate the revenue out of it through sharing or collaborating with partners or building the data products. So we will kind of take a deep dive into how that you can build the value out of the data. How do you unlock the value of the data? How you can unlock the value of data, right? Every business is collecting data or capturing the trail of consumer data or what we call a digital exhaust, such as IP addresses, mailing addresses, email IDs, geolocations, IoT device related informations, buyer personas, many ways that the data is getting captured. But this data is worth nothing unless you put to use. Companies are realizing how best they can put the data to use in a digital ecosystem in which the data is sort of gathered, organized, and exchanged by a network of participants. This sharing of data assets is helping organizations to unlock the value and achieve significant benefits. Now, with the increasing amount of data that is streamed and processed daily, many companies have realized unconventional or innovative ways to use this information, such as the data monetization. So, how can you maximize the data value? Go beyond the decision making or the performance monitoring in the modern era. Look for how you can monetize your data. Data monetization is the process where companies generated data is sort of used to create a measurable economic benefit. Beyond selling the data directly for cash or data monetization, it can happen. Organizations use data to create value driven products or convert the data and analytics into financial returns and other tangible benefits. So we can do a little bit of deep dive into it. What is the dynamics involved in the marketplace when it comes to the business of data? So in the modern era, the importance is all about how quickly that you are able to monetize the business or the data that what you're having. In the enterprise, the data, once it comes and sit into the enterprise, it becomes an asset. That means there is a cost associated. So you should treat the business, or you should treat this data as an asset. You should put this data to use. And there are various ways that this data can be put to use. Data can be sold to other organization if you're able to monetize it, if you're able to refine it. You can drive new features or products. You can manage and optimize your own supply chain information. You can enhance your customer experience. Only thing is, you should be able to see how you should be able to put the data to use. You should be able to refine it. You should be able to build an innovative way of building the insights into it. Data products, which is more of the norms going forward, where it can be in many forms, from dashboards displaying important performance indicators, or uh, learning machine learning models that making automated predictions. For example, Google search algorithm is an example of a successful data product. System uses a massive volume of data to deliver appropriate search results, and depending on the searches, right? Similarly, Amazon's recommendation engine is another great example of a data product, that recommends products to consumers based on the likes and activity. So in a data economy, data is collected and exchanged by varieties of stakeholders, including search engines, social media website, payment gateway, banks, etc. So it is extremely important to be part of this data economy, right? Being part of this global digital ecosystem. But is it so easy to get started with the data monetization part of it? Let's talk about it in the next slide. So we see various different levels of data monetization maturity, that what we kind of call as the success in what they have seen. The many of the companies, they have started most of their business, they operate, and many successful business, they stay there forever because the data that has been generated is not being really put to use. The next set of organization is where the data services, that is, data is produced, managed, and then this data services storage, but the limited externalization. That means data is being put to use, but it is not being externally adapted, or it is not something that they are going really in a robust way that they can sell the data or share the data to the external parties. Third category is the third level of maturity is the data products. The company takes its hard-earned secret sauce, for example, domain-specific information, the customers or the companies may have built over a period of time. How you can take it to the larger, market where there is a need for such data for further analysis, right? Finally, there are companies who have already established themselves. They have built a platform. They built a full-fledged line of business themselves, to which contributes in a significant way for the organization's bottom line by providing the data to the external vendors, sharing the data, or building the subscriptions models around it, or making the data as a service. So there are various ways that these vendors are operating, and they are making sure that the data is being monetized, right? So there are different levels of maturity that an organization has to go in with respect to the monetization journey. So what are the challenges? Because we talked about the monetization, we talked about the maturity level, right? Important here is, there are three aspects that is kind of categorized. One is strategic intent, right? It is not about just holding the data. The data is stuck in the organization, but then there is unknown markets that, where that you may have to share this data. There is a lack of priority in terms of the which data, how and who are the customers, or what is the market, the data need to be shared to. Second is the organization challenges. You will have internal focus, which is more on the existing set of challenges that what you're driving at. You're not looking at the bigger picture in terms of how this data can be harnessed further and then taken to the market outside. So the skill set which is required to take care of these kind of initiatives, which is again a misaligned. There are huge gaps with respect to the way that a monetization need to happen for a data versus building a simple, insights. Third is most important is the technology or the infrastructure that is really required to take care of these kind of monetization initiatives. As I said in the very beginning, there is a huge pressure on the digital leaders or in the leaders segment with respect to how they can make sure that their platform is scalable, flexible enough to handle the kind of a volume of data that is growing, and at the same time how they should be able to efficiently handle this growth of data and then bring the best use of it or the insights of the the monetization benefits of it. So the infrastructure plays a very, very important role. So these are the three broad areas under which the monetization challenges is kind of getting stuck, right? If you are able to address the, strategically bringing the right intent with respect to right stakeholders, identifying the right markets, and with the data that what you're holding on, or with respect to bringing the right set of people with the skills and of course the technical infrastructure, then I think the data monetization becomes much easier. Let's talk about how do you kind of typically go about the monetization strategy.
Absolutely, Srinath. Thank you so much. So strategy is everything, right? So when we, it's good that a lot of companies have a lot of data, but then when we are talking about monetization, there are, like Srinath rightly explained, there are two ways of monetize this, right? So one is the internal monetization, where you take value out of this data, use it internally to kind of generate more revenue. The other one is basically the external strategy, where you expose this data and make money from your customers, right? So there's this marketplace approach. So let's see what the strategy is, right? So there are a couple of strategies, but generally, what we'll have to do is first is define some business outcomes. This is very important. You kind of think about what is this, what line of business are we in, right? What are we really doing in the market, and then what is it that people would be really interested in. So let's say for my line of business, right? So is there a marketplace? Is somebody interested in the kind of the data that I possess? Those are the first things to kind of evaluate. Once that is done, then comes the processes that go into kind of building this strategy, right? So what is it that we need to do in terms of process? So what is the pricing that I'll be doing, right? So how do I acquire the data? How do I massage the data? How do I enhance the data, right? So these are all the processes that would be involved, and one of the important processes here is the governance that needs to be taken care of, because it's not like we could sell people's information which people basically entrust to us. So there are some governance principles and security principles that need to put in place to as part of the processes. Next is the data strategy. So let's say we have all of these things done. Now we have the data sets created or the data products created, and then how do we take this, right? So how do we store it? How do we expose this data? Do we have the right infrastructure to do this? And what is that, how do I ensure that I create the right kind of value as I expose to the market? So these are two things. And again, the even though the strategy looks overall plain, but I think there are some nuances here. So the internal, the way you monetize internal data is extremely different from what would be exposed to the marketplace. So obviously, you would have more access to your customer information, all that internally. But when you do this externally, that might not be possible. So we need to kind of think about all of these things. I think that is what the strategy basically entails. So like any other work that we do, so a framework ensures that we do a good job at getting to the target. So here, basically we need, like we looked at the strategy, the framework is basically calling out some of those tenets and ensuring that all of these things, you have a check mark, right? So the framework is basically setting things up for you. Um, uh, this has a very good alignment with the strategy as well. So we start with the goals. We call out. Is this something that is new that we are creating, or is it something? So if you look at the traditional companies, they already have the data. Maybe they are doing their business in a in an old-fashioned way, but then they can get into a new venture, right? They can think about, okay, how do I digitalize this data? How do I send this out to the customers in a much more efficient manner and kind of charge them for that, right? So this is becoming a trend with the existing companies or older companies, while the newer companies where we have worked with, like most of our customers are jumping right into this place where they're thinking, hey, can I right away start monetizing my data? Especially the healthcare players, they are looking at this, right? So I think so these goals are very important, because these goals are going to determine how you move forward with your next steps. Next is the practicality, right? What data do I have? Do I have the right kind of governance in place? Is this first of all possible? So, for example, you know how GDPR played a massive role in reshaping the data in Europe, the usage of data in Europe. So we also have to look at those practicality issues. Next is kind of designing the data service itself, right? So now we're talking about the technology aspects. Okay, do I have the right platform that where I can build my data process in my data sets? Do I have the right platform to cleanse my data? Do I have the right platform to kind of apply my governance and security rules and all that, the policies itself? So that is that goes into the data service. Next is building and enhancing the delivery capacity, right? So this is capacity is very important. It's very important because the data sits within your ecosystem, and if people start utilizing it, then you are basically bleeding. So it is your it's your environment. It's so at the end of the day, it is us who pay the bills. So you need to ensure what kind of capacity is being done, and this ties in nicely with the strategy again. What kind of pricing are you going with, right? So okay, here's the data set I'm exposing, and this is the pricing strategy that I have for you. And this is where most you could most of our providers today do this, like for example AWS, and if you look at Azure, we have this pricing models which are very flexible. At the same time, they ensure that the most value is provided to the end customers. So at last, we have to evaluate the outcomes as well. We'll have to see, okay, was I successful in doing this, right? So okay, is there a TikTok methodology? I exposed this first. Yes, there is interest. Now how do I refine it better? How do I add more value to the customer? And these are the things that we'll have to evaluate and ensure that we've done a good job. So this is the framework that we have for monetization. Data value chain is something that most of the technical people would be aware of, and even on the business side of things, put it to use within your organization, right? So that is what this is all about, creating that value for your data. So initially, we would know the raw data would come into an organization. It could be external, it could be internal. It just sits there, and then you need to ensure that the right foundation is set up so that this data can be accessed and analyzed and everything as you start moving, right? So once the platform is set up, you go higher up, you create a little bit of value, and then the next is you start creating your reports, you do your analysis on top of your data, you feed this analysis and the outcome of the analysis back into your business to gain value. Then you've gone one step further. So as you move forward, like the value of the data goes up, right? And then next comes the curation, right? Curation is very important, right? Most of the companies, we've seen that they have the analysis set up, they have their data, they are creating reports, but what necessarily is missing is the curation, where you catalog all of your data. You know everything that is happening across the business, and you know the lineage of what's happening, where is the data coming from, where is it going to. And then you also have this nice curated data set, which could be ready. You could basically take this data and say that, hey, this is the data that needs to be used internally, this can be monetized. That clarity comes only when you start curating the data and tagging those data sets. It's very important. You would see a lot of mature companies doing this. They have a very wealthy catalog, and they know what they're doing with their data. So next is harmonization. So harmonization is all about bringing that data to the forefront and ensuring that all of this data is usable in a way, right? So let's say while you harmonize this data, you ensure that these data sets are all cleared for whatever is the intents and purposes of the data. There is so for example, within the same organization, you cannot have multiple processes being followed, or multiple ways of exposing the data to the customer. So all of this needs to work well together, and all of the guiding principles have to be followed, the governance rules have to be applied, the data security has to be applied, right? And so this is all about the harmonization and ensuring that you have a data that can be productized, which can basically go out into the world, right? That's what we're talking about here. The final step is where we say the outcomes. These outcomes, like we discussed, it's internal as well as external. So some of the data sets you use it for internal purposes. Some of the data sets can be very well be monetized externally. You bring in you find who your customer is, who your buyer is. See, ensure how this data can benefit them. And you have some internal processes as well, right? You put the right people at the right place to kind of handle the data products themselves, and create this value. So what we saw was the raw data stepping up slowly and becoming of massive importance, where you gain that value out of your data. So that's the value chain process. This is the reference model. Like any other reference models, what happens is, yeah, it is a little bit crowded, but then the key elements here is we have just like, right, some technical foundations or components in your data architecture so that we can enable this. So what we are seeing here is that reference model. So what are those key components that you need to look at? It's not like all of these components are required in your organization, but you could basically employ or deploy those components which you think is necessary to get to that stage, right? So that's what this architecture talks about. The first thing is to your extreme left, you could see all the external data providers. This is your social media. This is your data that comes in from your third-party vendors. It could be your third-party data sets. So for example, your weather data, or your customer data, which is coming in from some other third-party vendor. Could be anything. So all of your external data is, that's the first thing that we need to sort out. And in terms of monetization, this plays a very key role, because sometimes you might not sometimes most of the times you might have to enhance your data set using some external data set, so that it becomes much more, it creates much more value to the end user or the customer. And next is as we have sorted out the external, we move into the internal data sets. Those are your applications that are used to run your day-to-day jobs. So that is those are your internal systems. Obviously, we need to ensure how are we acquiring this data. How are we moving this from your operational data sets into your into your analytical data sets. What are the mechanisms that are used? How do I ensure that we are doing a good job? How do we ensure that we are not losing out the data? How what's the quality of it? What is the security and all that, right? So that's the second box. And then we move into the next box, where it is actually talking about your data lake, your data storage, your data principles. You're right. This is what we build. This is where we build our data products themselves. So this becomes a very key part of your entire architecture. And one of the very important points I would like to talk about is the MDM piece here. It is very critical for any organization. You need to have a very strong foundation of your master data that ensures how well you can do analytics and how well you can actually structure even your internal systems. We know all of our master data sets, like your customer, your equipments, your any of your entities, right? So inside a business, that needs to be properly tagged, properly cataloged, and ensure that we process once and once only. And then that goes into your data warehouse. And then as we move forward, we do our reporting, we do our analytics on top of that. And then as you mature, you create those data products and expose it to your external customers. That is the reference model here.
Great, thanks, Srini. So quickly, I think thanks for the bringing the insight into the data value chain and then the kind of a foundation that what an organization need to have for the monetization. But many of this data, but it's never been technically feasible or economically viable or efficient for them to when they kind of get onto the monetization journey, just because that they are sitting on a traditional or legacy data management setup. I'm not saying that the traditional legacy data management setup is not efficient, but it just probably is not going to cut it when it comes to the kind of monetization related platform requirements are concerned. Legacy
Very
data
true.
systems can be slow, complex, right? Make it difficult to sort of access the data quickly. And the data platform in the case of the monetization need to be much more faster, so that there is a quicker access to the data, the speed to market that what you want is quicker, and then bring in the more efficient way of retrieving the data as well. Then it becomes much more important with respect to the scalability, the flexibility, because the volume of data will keep growing, and the organization need to ensure that the infrastructure is scalable and meet the need as the data can grow. And big data and the on-prem setup that what you may have may or may not be able to kind of completely sustain the kind of the growth that what has been witnessed, right? And from a cost perspective, this on-premises infrastructure is kind of turning out to be really, really expensive. So that is where that the economy kind of comes into play, and then that becomes much more inefficient overall. The data security and compliance is going to play another important role, right? So when we are talking about the monetization, it need to from the breaches or data breaches or any kind of unauthorized access. At the same time, data quality, which is extremely critical when we are talking about the data monetization related initiatives, right? This is all about the trust, right? You're kind of giving away the data, and that trust is very, very important. There should be a sufficient data quality controls that need to be there to ensure the data sets are accurate, reliable, consistent, right? Legacy platform often lack this kind of support in identifying or correcting the data quality errors quickly, right? So the data quality aspect, when it comes to through the modern data platform, it becomes much more easier. So revitalizing your data landscape is extremely critical. Data modernization is sort of at the core of this efficient enterprise outcomes. And to remain relevant in the market right now and in the future, you need to have a robust modern data platform, right? So which is kind of able to deliver the greater operational efficiency, and then give that the agility and the performance that you're looking forward, at the same time bringing that security and then the data quality related compliance that what you will definitely need, right? So let's quickly move on to, so when we talk about data modernization, we talked about the traditional data platform, but what it means is to move forward, it's all about going towards the cloud, right? How quickly that you are able to collect, how that you'll be able to share the data, like what Srini was mentioning in the reference architecture. And at the same time, most important is bringing the governance or adherence to the security controls. Traditionally, what we have seen is the cloud and data modernization strategies are sort of running in silos or in separate tracks, right? However, when it comes to monetization, it becomes extremely important to make sure that there is a contextualization and bring the unified approach for the cloud and data modernization strategy. And at the same time, while that we are talking about this importance of the cloud, it is also imperative that the kind of pressure that customers are in, especially with respect to digital native counterparts who are able to innovate and respond quickly to the customers or the market requirements or the market trends. So you need to have that kind of a platform which you should be able to spin it out and then try to do the experimentation, or try to do the trials, and then make sure that you are ready with your iterations and finalized results, and then take it to the market. And for that you need to kind of again get the scale that what you need, right? So all these things kind of becomes very critical when it comes to the monetization platform. Companies that have not yet aligned for this kind of a modernization strategies, I think it is highly recommended to do so now, because the companies who are already reaping the most benefits of this monetization, they're already far ahead, and they are really making a lot of strides in the market. So the companies who moved past the initial experimental stages, they are sort of learning it. But what is important here is how quickly that you are able to mobilize, how quickly that you are bringing that kind of a platform that is essential overall from the monetization journey perspective, right? Um, when we talk about the data modernization, when we kind of talks about the acceleration, the kind of a modern data platform, the cloud becomes quite evident. The Gartner prediction, the Gartner analysts say that about 85% of organizations will embrace the cloud first strategy. So what it means that most of the workload will be operated out of cloud. So in the data monetization is not spared either. So this is where that we are trying to say that you can accelerate your monetization, bringing the cloud component into your overall strategy, right? Uh, the scalability in the compute power, or the real-time data sharing capabilities, or the kind of a cloud-based technology that is required for you to get your monetization, and then the kind of a technology mix that what you need, that is something that is possible with respect to the cloud based platform, right? So it is absolutely important to bring in the cloud into the monetization related initiatives or the strategies. How that quickly that you can bring in the modernization of your legacy or the traditional data landscape, and that is something is very critical. Earlier, the way that it is done at a much faster way is something that what you will be able to realize the benefits from a monetization perspective. Srini, you want to talk about the modernization, that what we talk about, the kind of platform that what is required. But I guess still that the organizations are still not there in terms of the maturity perspective, right? So did you want to throw some light on this, please?
Sure, sure, Srinath. I think one of the important things what we have seen is the traditional companies which have existed for at least 25 odd years, or like let's say for a longer period of time, they would have they know a lot of things that are wrong with their the way they maintain the data or manage the data. There's a lot of tech debt itself, and then this modernization obviously will help them with getting rid of it, because the newer players into the same market would they learn faster, right? Because they are on the cloud, they're able to kind of accelerate this. So I completely agree. That was a very good slide. It's where I think people, time is of essence. Like I completely agree there. They have to quickly look into it and move forward. In terms of modernization maturity, what we've seen is it's pretty natural in any case. Like this is how it is. The first stage is ad hoc, where it is the lowest level of maturity. Here, the companies are just thinking about, how do I get started, right? They are not really thinking about how do I monetize something, or they just have the basic systems. They're just looking at the data that they have. They're just trying to get their day-to-day done. Okay, that's about it. So there's no long-term vision per se. Then as they move into the next step, what they are doing here is they start thinking about the data capabilities. They start, okay, they're starting to upgrade it or consolidate or standardize their data. They're also looking at some of the key elements of data quality, security, governance, right? So some of those key tenets of data management. They start looking at these very important thing, and as they start looking at it, they become well managed systems. And then the next is when they optimize. Here they're here it becomes a strategic strategic priority. All of their data modernization is one of their strategies, right? And a priority and a core competency of the business itself. So here the data systems infrastructures are all upgraded, consolidated. It's very nice to look at. The quality and governance are excellent, right? All of these fundamental blocks are actually set. It's all set for the future. So that's where they become optimized. And next is innovative level. So here what they're doing is, this is the highest level of maturity that a company can look for. So here what they're becoming is that they're using this modernization as one of their strategies to kind of compete in the market, right? So how fast can you do something? How sooner can you bring value into the market? How quickly can you do this and ensure that you beat the competition, right? You are better than the rest. So that's where they become really innovative. There are a lot of companies which have done excellent job here. They are pioneers. For example, Amazon or Google. We see how they go ahead and set the standards for the industry itself. So yeah, this is a great example of how you could mature in your data modernization. Absolutely. So we could also look at the path as to how, obviously Rome was not built in a day, so it takes a while for you to get there. And so everything starts with the planning. We need to know what we have first. Know what is the data that we have. How can I okay, let's say there are some legacy systems. How do I make it much more modern in nature? Okay, while I do this, how good of a job am I doing, right? How am I actually planning for the capacity? How am I planning for the resources that I have, like people as well, right? You need the right talent, or you need to have the right kind of strategic partnerships, so that you can get this done. So that is the first step here. Next is the implementation. So obviously do not go with this big bang approach. You can very nicely do this. You can take smaller chunks, ensure that that works well, take those learnings, right, and then apply it to other areas where you want to modernize. So that's a very good way of doing this. How do we do automated how do we do automation, and then always set up this nice lake architecture where storage is nothing in today's world. We organizations have to start thinking about okay, how do I store the data for the future purposes, but only bring in what is necessary for today, and at the same time keep an eye on the data that they have, so that they can start creating value slowly and non-iterative process. And once this is done, this is the post implementation, because this is very key. Let's say you don't want to spend more, right? You want to ensure that it is very optimized. So we need to look at those areas where, how do I optimize my consumption? How am I doing this? How is there a cost versus benefit analysis that is being done? And how also very important is how the observability piece, Srinath, which we have seen that a lot of companies, even though they are on the cloud with a modern stack, there is still this lack in observability. I think that's a very key piece. Where, how does the data flow? How well does it flow? Who has access to this data? So all of these are very key things, and this would lead into a very successful modernization practice, as far as I know. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. I think will kind of touch upon how Indium can help. So we kind of talked through about the monetization. We talked through about the modernization part of it. So Indium can come in at any stage of this monetization related initiatives. It could be at a very first, from a strategy perspective in terms of data modernization, to make sure that the kind of a monetization journey that what you want to start off. So basically, building the vision, strategy for the data and analytics initiatives as part of the modernization, and then the architecture, the infrastructure assessment that what you may have currently, and then kind of identify the go forward or the future model of the architecture or the roadmap, how to go about it in terms of the modernization. Second is with respect to the data monetization related strategy itself. If you have already a platform, how do you establish a kind of a vision and then try to align this to business objectives and the KPIs, assess and evaluate the existing data assets, which is important for any kind of monetization journey, and then finally laying out the roadmap that is required for your data products, which is essentially the part of the data monetization. So that is on the strategy part of it. When it comes to implementation, again, there are three parts. One is with respect to the data management. Again, you will have to handle your data or the data platform or the data management aspect of it. Again, you will have to have a clear architecture and design in place. The data integration need to be taken care of. You're trying to bring in data from various different sources. You may have to migrate from your legacy system into the modern data platform, which is meant for the monetization journey. You need to ensure there's a data governance, master data management, metadata management, the data quality aspect, how it is to be handled. So all these things kind of comes under the enterprise data management. So this is where that India can help with respect to implementation with any of these initiatives. Second is the analytics part of it, where that you're trying to bring in the advanced data science or AI ML concepts and then the techniques around in terms of bringing the business analytics or building the visualizations or kind of the advanced uh, AI ML based use cases for you to develop the data products, right? Finally, the data product engineering itself, where that how you're going to bring in the data set which is really necessary for the data products, right? So which is kind of completely aligned to your market, that what you're trying to target to, right? So you need to have the kind of a curated data sets, bring in the data APIs, if it is part of the API economy, that what you want to drive it. You need to have that kind of a UX UI kind of a combination of skill set that is really required to make sure that you kind of give the wow factor, for the keeping the customer experience into the consideration. And most importantly, again, bringing that cognitive intelligence or with respect to the data assurance part of it, which is again validation of the data product which is kind of getting shipped out and or being made available to the public or to the external or to your network or the operators that what you're working with. So the data assurance plays extremely important role again to make sure that the data that what you're sharing is something that is trustworthy and it is reliable and is accurate enough for the external parties to consume, right? So the entire gamut with respect to the data monetization, from a modernization of the platform or with respect to data monetization or with respect to building the data products or managing the enterprise data management setup or bringing any kind of a advanced analytics for to build the insights or the products around data products around with the AI ML coming into play. India can help with this entire set of services that what you may be looking for. While we do this, we also kind of bring in the right level of partnership that what we kind of have with Stream or Databricks or AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, based on the need and based on type of use cases and the situation that what we have to deal with. And at the same time, most of the time that we can kind of come up with accelerators that what we have developed over a period of time. Text.ai, which is AI powered text analytics accelerator. If anybody is really interested how that they we can engage the text.ai for the data, the text extraction, summarization, redact, and many other features. This is an accelerator that what we kind of go along. iBricks, it's a kind of an accelerated accelerator that is built around the Databricks for any of the Databricks related in implementations or migrations. SnowSense, it is more specific to Snowflake related accelerators, which is kind of helping with respect to migration into Snowflake. If your destination with respect to your data monetization platform, it is going to be more of the Snowflake, then how you can get the data or the migration quickly into the Snowflake platform, right? And then there are various other different accelerators that we kind of bring in with respect to the data quality or data assurance or automation of the the data or the testing aspect of it, right? So this is the entire comprehensive set of services that what we kind of offer. While we do this, I just want to quickly give a glimpse about some of the monetization work that what you have done for various different customers. So we have built an enterprise data analytics and data products for funnel analysis, impact analysis, and forecasting, marketing, sizing analysis, adoption analysis. This is for a global logistics and transportation customer. Second, we built data modernization platform. We kind of provided them the kind of a brownfield implementation where that we took care of their existing legacy, modernizing the entire data platform, building the unified view of data, and deliver the higher accurate credit risk analytics that what customers looking for. At the same time, we kind of worked on various different products where that it is kind of more of a SaaSification of their data. For example, we kind of engaged in a strategy and implementation of an enterprise data modern data platform for a geoscience services company to support their data monetization initiatives, right? So it is all about building this whole data platform, building the cool use cases with respect to the UI UX, and then bring in that kind of a data. Or how do you kind of bring the SaaSification of the data, make sure that this digital hub or the data platform is being used by the external users of various different customers that what we are working. So essentially that India has been in the in the area or the focus where it is more of data product related development, enabling the customer to SaaSify, monetize their data, and take the get the benefit that what they are looking for, right? So key takeaways, when we are talking about the data monetization, I think it is very important to understand the significance and the worth of data in your business. You need to put your data to work for the internal and external growth. This is what I was talking about. There's a lot of data, but then if it is stuck, then it's of no use. You really need to see how you can put the data to work. To get this, you need to organize your data. You need to get your infrastructure in place. And to get the modern data platform, you may have to go through the data modernization, which is kind of you need to go through this data modernization. But most often, with the kind of the requirement that what we see from monetization or building a data product, I think the data modernization sort of become essential. You should be able to enrich your data, and you should be able to partner with your larger digital ecosystem, or by being part of the data economy. How you can enrich. You may have to buy in third-party data, but make sure that your data is enriched, not just the data that what you're sitting on. Integrate your monetization strategies, business strategies, with the right framework, what we kind of earlier kind of touched upon. The most important is we need to establish the competencies, because these are all the engagement where that need kind of a massive amount of very different skill set, and need to bring in different technologies. And finally, the most important is you need to stitch the whole story with respect to right governance and security, right? So these are some of the key takeaways that I would say from this webinar, where that how to progress from conceptualization, from monetization, to make sure that there is a success, and then there is a significant ROI coming out of your monetization initiatives. So if you are kind of up for this kind of monetizing of data, whether you're looking to create data products or share insights with other organizations or improve your business performance, Indium can partner with you. We will evaluate your existing data architecture, assist you in transitioning to efficient and adaptable data ecosystem, etc. So please do get in touch with us to learn us more. And thanks for your patiently waiting for the information that what we are sharing. Thank you so much. With this, we can open up for Q&A session. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Srinath and Srini. That was extremely insightful. Yeah, we seem to have a flurry of questions. Let me start off with the first one. So this says, when should an organization start on data monetization initiatives?
Okay, so Srini, let me take that question.
Please go ahead.
All right. So they are practicing the data monetization. They are realizing the massive benefits with increase in revenue and opportunities for the new data related services, right? The benefits of data monetization is far outweigh the initial financial or the time of investment, or the time investment that is required. I would say there's no better time for anybody from a business standpoint to learn how to develop a competitive advantage through effective data gathering. And it is earlier the better. There is no specific stage at which they need to start or look forward. What is more important is in this thing is to align your the data strategy with the cloud, which is extremely important, as I was kind of mentioning earlier, because the companies are kind of reaping the most benefits when they are able to bring these things together. Now, at the most, again, it is all about how that you are able to collect and centralize the data, analyze the data, right? Choosing the right operating model, and then adhering to governance. So all these things are very crucial when it comes to the data monetization initiatives. So get your the data house in order, get the understanding the role and value of data in your business. Probably get the right business operating model, whether you're going to share the data or you're going to bring it as a subscription service, or you're going to try to make it as a service, data is sold as a service. So there are various different ways that you can look for how that you're going to operate. So I would not say that it has to have a definitive start kind of a thing. You can start off anywhere that you are in. All it is required is to quickly get your acts together and then start off from there.
Yeah, and especially the startups, I think they are the top of the game. Like they are looking at monetizing it from day one. So I think most of their strategies are also built around that. So I think, yeah, there is no better time than now.
Absolutely, that's great. Yeah.
Thanks, Srinath and Srini. So, in the interest of time, what we'll do is we'll take one more question and then we'll respond to the other questions via email, right? So, the next question
Sure.
is: will a company not lose its specialty when it exposes some of its secrets or IP-based outcomes to the world, which even the competitors have access to?
That's a great question. Well, I mean, how do I put it? Okay, in a data economy, data is collected and exchanged by varieties of stakeholders. It could be coming from search engines, social media websites, or payment gateways, or financial service providers, right? It could be even the firms deploying connected IoT devices, for that matter. So data, in my opinion, will always get enriched as the data is shared and exchanged in the right perspective, from a business perspective. You are not giving away the proprietary data. Rather, you will share the information as appropriate to be part of the data economy. I mean, I can think of two quick examples. For example, one of the global transportation logistics major, right? They enrich the kind of data that they have captured, or the scan data that what they have captured from all the millions of shipments that they are handling globally, with the weather and the traffic data information, right? So they kind of bring in these two information together, the weather and traffic data along with the the shipment data that what they have, and bring in the predictive analytics to improve the flow of goods through the logistics network, or make themselves to more of a reliable logistic partners, right? Especially when it comes to high value critical goods. This is extremely important from an internal monetization perspective, but the same information is something that they are helping the people who are placing the orders for them to find out their demand and forecasting aspect as well. So it is not about internal, but then it is also something that they are going external in terms of collaborating with people who are placing the orders for the logistics, or for the operations part of it. The another example could be is an Australian telecom major, right? They are bringing the IoT enabled monitoring devices, and they deliver application that convert the wastewater or air, soil, and noise data into actionable insights, right? So they get all this information because they are providing the IoT related network, and they kind of get this kind of information out. So they are trying to combine this data with the climate or data gathered from the weather stations. Now they are trying to club this together, and then they're trying to bring in the another model where that they are trying to help the Australia's agricultural industry with information that can be used to range of activities, from predicting the health of the crop yields, or to determine the pesticides used, etc. Right? So there's various different use cases that they can come up with. So essentially, that you are having the data of IoT, you're kind of going ahead and then you're partnering with your the operators who can probably enrich your data, and then you kind of try to give an end-to-end solution from a an industry perspective, right? So these are the examples where that not necessarily that you will need to have this kind of information that always to be gathered internally, but you may have to share it so that there is an always enrichment that is happening. So I think sharing with the right information, with the right intent, the right governance, I think it will make enrich the data that what you are going to or monetize the data, that or better way to monetize the data, in my opinion.
And there you have it, a wealth of insights and perspectives on accelerating the monetization of your data assets through effective data modernization. We thank our speakers Srinath and Srinivasan for sharing their expertise and experiences with us today. Remember, the journey of data modernization and monetization requires strategic thinking, collaboration, and continuous learning. The challenges may be significant, but the rewards for enhanced business outcomes and innovation are worth the effort. As we conclude this webinar, we encourage you to stay connected with us. If you have any specific or urgent inquiries or require any further assistance, feel free to reach out to us. We'll send out an email with all the contact details shortly. Thank you once again for joining us today. On behalf of the entire team at Indium and our esteemed speakers, we wish you all the best in your data monetization and monetization endeavors. Have a great day. Thank you.